The Order of Skull and Bones, once known as the Brotherhood of Death, is a senior or secret society based at Yale University, in New Haven, Connecticut. The Society's alumni organization, which owns its properties and oversees all the organization's activity, is known as the Russell Trust Association, RTA, and is named after one of Bone's founding members. In conversation, the group is known as Bones, and members have been known as Bonesmen. Skull and Bones is known for its secrecy. Members meet in the tomb on Thursday and Sunday evenings of each week over the course of their senior year. It is an organization dedicated to the success of its members after leaving the college world, so much so that some of the world's most famous and powerful men alive today are a part of the Order of the Skull and Bones, including George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., John Kerry, Nicholas Brady, and William F. Buckley. Other members of the Order of the Skull and Bones are Henry Luce, owner of Time Life magazine, Harold Stanley, the founder of Morgan Stanley, John Daniels, the founder of Archer Daniels Midland Investment Corporation, Henry P. Davison, the senior partner of Morgan Guaranty Trust, Pierre J., the first chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Artemis Gates, the president of New York Trust Company, Union Pacific, Time, and Boeing Company, Senator John Chaff, Russell W. Davenport, the editor of Fortune magazine, and many others, all of whom have taken a solemn vow of secrecy. In the book called America's Secret Establishment, by Anthony C. Sutton, which was written in 1986, pages 5 to 6, states, "Those on the inside know it as the Order. Others have known it for more than 150 years as Chapter 322 of a German secret society." More formally, for legal purposes, the Order was incorporated as the Russell Trust in 1856. It was also once known as the Brotherhood of Death. Those who make light of it, or want to make fun of it, call it Skull and Bones, or just plain Bones. The American chapter of this German order was founded in 1833 at Yale University by General William Huntington Russell and Alphonso Taft, who, in 1876, became Secretary of War in the Grant administration. Alphonso Taft was the father of William Howard Taft, the only man to be both President and Chief Justice of the United States. The Order is not just another Greek letter fraternal society with passwords and handgrips common to most campuses. Chapter 322 is a secret society whose members are sworn to silence. It only exists on the Yale campus, that we know about. It has rules. It has ceremonial rites. It is not at all happy with prying, probing citizens, known among initiates as outsiders or vandals. Its members always deny membership, or are supposed to deny membership, and in checking hundreds of autobiographical listings for members, there are only half a dozen who admitted having an affiliation with the Order of the Skull and Bones. Above all, the Order is powerful, unbelievably powerful. If the reader will persist and examine the evidence that is given concerning this secret society, there is no doubt your view of the world will suddenly come sharply into focus, with almost frightening clarity. It is a senior year society which exists only at Yale. Members are chosen in their junior year and spend only 1 year on campus, the senior year, with Skull and Bones. In other words, the organization is oriented to the graduate outside world. The Order meets annually on Deer Island in the St. Lawrence River. The selection procedure for new members of the Order has not changed since 1832. Each year 15, and only 15, never fewer, are selected. In the past 150 years, about 2,500 Yale graduates have been initiated into the Order. At any time, about 500 to 600 are alive and active. The most likely potential member is from a Bones family, who is energetic, resourceful, political, and a team player. Honors and financial rewards are guaranteed by the power of the Order. But the price of these honors and rewards is sacrifice to the common goal, the goal of the Order. The old line American families and their descendants involved in the Skull and Bones are names such as Whitney, Perkins, Stimson, Taft, Wadsworth, Gilman, Payne, Davidson, Pillsbury, Sloan, Weyerhaeuser, Harriman, Rockefeller, Lord, Brown, Bundy, Bush, and Phelps. Many of these are men who helped to create and enforce the judicial system used to rule the masses. These laws of the Caucasus judicial system are not really justice. Remember the Netert, female angelic guardian, of justice is Netert Ma'at, yet when they show you the scales of justice found in Babylon under Hammurabi, it appears as the same symbol now used in the United States for justice, except that there is no justice in the United States, because one scale is up, the other is down, and that is not justice, which as a word implies order or balancement, that is justus, or disorder. True order or justice is when both scales are on the same level, and so, you the Tamarayan, Nubian, African, Hispanic, Caribbean, Black or Latino anywhere on this planet where his rules and regulations govern that dares ask or expect justice under his system are being foolish. Because the symbol says you will never get it. Remember always that their judicial system is corrupted, having no fair trials, no fair juries and no fair sentences. Holy Tablets 5-840. Do not go in and out of the court of justice so that your name may not be soiled. There are many amongst our race who works for the Caucasus vampire, demon man, in much the same way that a ghoul works to bring Dracula more victims. These are people who, like the original fallen beings, are in black skin yet have the mentality of the beast. They hate self and kind, often being of mixed racial ancestry within the last 4 generations, which causes an inner struggle within them where the voices of their Caucasus ancestry controls them from within. This is the reason why you can sometimes be talking to a person who looks like you, a Nubian, African, Nuwabian, etc., and feel that no matter what you say or how much proof you give, they cannot see nor accept the facts. We are not talking about members of our race who are under the spell, for that is a different situation altogether. We are speaking about people who deep within their hearts are against anything which has to do with Tama-Re, ancient Africa, or race pride, etc. Most of these, when their DNA is investigated, you will find of equal amounts of Caucasus genetics, Asian genetics, or another group of people as they do African genetics. This makes it where you are not always able to discern where their minds really are, meaning you are talking to their 16 personalities, but when you look into their eyes you are unaware that you may be talking to a pale man or pale mentality and black skin. Simply they are black in genes but Caucasus in heritage. Holy Tablets 6-274, the violation of the law and the failure to apply its penalties brought into being a race of humanoids. One of the ways which you can tell who they are is that they will always try to incite violence because they are not mentalists, being the progeny of 6 ether and ghost. Many of them can only react and a few amongst this type can think, but they all fall short of the ability to reason. They will never attempt to do mental battle because they lack the genetic ability, and as such they are not equipped. These types of blacks are members of secret societies such as the Boule. This black secret society is also known as Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity, Incorporated, and founded May 15, 1904 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is the first black fraternity in America and was before the first black college frat, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which was founded December 4, 1906. The Boule is a black Greek secret society based on the Order of the Skull and Bones. The Boule's main founder was Dr. Henry Minton, along with Drs. Eugene T. Henson, Edwin Clarence Howard, Algernon Brashear Jackson, Robert Jones Abele, and Richard John Warwick. The founding member of the New York City chapter was W.E.B. Du Bois, who said the Boule was created to keep the black professional away from the ranks of Marcus Garvey. Holy Tablets 10-12 425-432, if a Negro, male and female, can read and study this tablet and still have the same old negative mind and same old negative spirit that makes a person a black devil and keeps a person a Negro, that individual is incapable of being resurrected from the mental dead and is definitely detrimental to the cause of new being, progress and well-being, because that person is indeed on the side of the enemy of liberty, equality, justice, and nationalism. Furthermore, if a Negro simply reads these teachings and the knowledge in them, and does not start a growing fire for mental resurrection, liberty, and equality, that person is dead forever, and is a bigger liability to progress and well-being than the alien enemy himself, because you know the enemy on sight, but those enemies among you that look like you are more dangerous, for the only way you know them is by their word or deeds or both. Therefore, the enemies among you that look like you are enemies of right Nuwapians' goals, the same as the alien oppressor. They are black devils. These people are those blacks who have an invested interest in protecting Caucasus supremacy in hopes that he would continue to let them live well. Simply they would get to control the crumbs which he allows to fall from his table, thus allowing them to rule over their own race. The Boule did these things in hopes that it would keep the educated, wealthy or articulate Nubian, black, African etc. away from any organizations which would encourage them to utilize their wealth to help build the African continent or develop their own communities. Instead it sought to keep them with organized, Caucasus-controlled institutions that would ensure they are kept away from self-improvement. The Boule are ghouls. A ghoul is a servant of the Dracula race who has the power to serve his or her master in the sunlight without fear of being killed by the sun's rays, simply getting skin cancer. These ghouls are nothing but GH equals ghost, and ol equals soul, simply a person who is soul yet is being used by the ghost race. They are also a part of ghost, where G equals God's host, simply the host of the death forces or the Dracula race, the Caucasus. What groups such as the Boule distract you from is the fact that the first land and people that the Messiah Yeshua Christ, falsely called Jesus, lived amongst, learned from and eventually taught amongst were us, the Tamarayans, ancient Africans of Nubia, Egypt, and as such he was taught as all citizens of our lands were about the power of the original ninth hour cross of life called the Ankh, and what it really represented. He, Yeshua, learned that once a person physically expired they were as a blind individual, unable to see, thus had need of the crook, cane, and Ankh, key to eternal life, being placed in their hands. For one, the crook cane was used as a blind man would to find your way through the darkness of the crypt, grave, and the other, the Ankh key to eternal life, you would need in order to be able to unlock the door to life eternal, for this is what keys are used for, opening or unlocking doors or mysteries. Thus, the Messiah Yeshua Christ is the way, the truth and the life, was and is the key to life eternal through his example, discipline and obedience. It was this original ninth-hour cross called the Ankh that Tutankhamun, the real Messiah Yeshua Christ of 2,000 years ago, was placed in order to be raised to life eternal. This is proven by the fact that the Tamaraean, ancient African, Nubian, word for the burial casket is Neb Ankh, simply the Neb, Lord's and Ankh, cross or key that leads to eternal life, which many so-called religious scholars translate as the Greek word sarcophagus, which the Romans called a sepulchre or tomb. Even further, there is the place of a skull called Golgotha, in reality the Great Pyramids of Tama-Re, mentioned in Matthew 27:33, Mark 15:22 and John 19:17, that the Messiah Yeshua Christ was supposed to be placed to death and resurrect to eternal life from. This is nothing but the ritual called the opening of the mouth ceremony, where you were placed in the Tamaraean, ancient African, position of resurrection and raised up upon initiation into the greater mysteries of Tama-Re. Thus your hands, arms and skull formed the skull and bones, thereby the mountain of skulls. Notice this Greek Orthodox Church leader has the symbol of the skull and bones on the cross he is holding. They know that the Messiah Yeshua Christ, Tutankhamun, was taken through a ritual or resurrection called the opening of the mouth ceremony, where he became his father reborn on earth, all based on the original Ankh symbol. John 14:6, Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no man cometh unto the Father, but by me. John 21, the first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene, early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Furthermore, the cross, sixth hour, of so-called Pauline Christianity came from the Tamaraean, ancient African Nubian, Ankh. The present-day cross, sixth hour, which most people the world over are using, is really the Greek version called the Tau, taken from the Christian Asanta. You see, the top of the cross was taken from the Tamaraean ring called the Shen, a symbol of eternity, which the Christians changed into putting the halo over the head of the crucified person, and that, the halo, is the top of the Ankh, the original cross. All the different denominations grafted their symbol from the precept of the Tamaraean, ancient African, Ankh. The Tau, which is a cross in the form of a T, represents the Greek Tau sign, mark, meaning resurrection, new life, the coming of rain, and an O, which represents the Greek letter Omega, meaning last, doomed or dead. This is where the Europeanized Pauline Christians get their concept of resurrection. After you die, you resurrect to eternal life. Thus the Ankh is the key to the gate. Again, the fact is that if you were to draw the Greek symbol for Omega and the Aleph under it, you have the first and the last. Thus when placed together, you are looking at the Ankh, that which you receive when you pass death and resurrect into eternal life. You see it because the Omega has two side extensions, which are the arms of the Ankh, so the Greeks knew and hid it from the minds of the world's masses. The Tamaraeans, ancient Africans, knew that the mortal man or woman was in fact mentally dead, as much as a physically dead person is dead, yet in both cases there is enough life that with proper knowledge the resurrection of the mind, in the case of living, or cloning, in the case of the deceased, was and is possible, and the Ankh is a resurrection, in the case of initiation, or burial chamber held and holds the key. Even further, the Neb Ankh, coffin, used by the Tamaraean, ancient African, contained three coffins which were held beneath three layers of the Neb Ankh coffin itself. The first of the three Neb Ankh coffin was made of wood, the second Neb Ankh coffin was made of wood, gold gilded and laminated with inlays of polychrome glass pastes. The third Neb Ankh coffin was made of solid gold, under which rested the gold funerary mask, which was placed directly on the mummy. The reality is that the Tamaraean, ancient African, could have had just as elaborate a burial with just one solid gold tomb if all they were trying to achieve was glamour, as many so-called scholars would have you believe. Yet the fact is that the layers which the Neb Ankh coffin actually contained were actually ladders to the stars on Earth. You see, the Tamaraean, ancient African, mapped out the stars and knew of all the electromagnetic grids on the Earth. They also knew how to channel this energy, which originated from the Mara'a pyramids, which was used in their own daily lives. One of the ways in which this energy was used was for electricity. We say this because the Tamaraean, ancient African, knew that electricity could be generated in the form of a battery, knowledge which they showed as the Died pillar, which was none other than a simple pile battery, meaning a nuclear reactor. The Died or Zed pillar was a symbol of the backbone of Asaru, US, or falsely called Osiris, which was not only a being but in this case actually a constellation that the Greeks called Orion. The Died pillar actually produced a stable electrical current, just as the batteries you use today produce, and as such it is considered to be the greatest invention of all time. A Died battery was made by placing two dissimilar, not the same, metals on either side of a piece of papyrus which was soaked in salt water, sodium the 11th element, or acid. The Tamarayan, ancient African, were able to produce greater energy by increasing the number of units of zinc and copper which the metals contained. They were able to do this again because they were alchemists or scientists, and as such they knew how different chemicals would react with one another and how to separate natural substances such as water into their based molecules such as hydrogen and oxygen. The shrines, sacred burial sites overseen by the Sem or Semu priesthood, of the Tamarayan were built of wood covered by sheets of gold inside and out and then actually electrically charged in order to protect sacred objects that were within them. One of the most famous of these shrines was the original Ark of Covenant built by the first Moses known as the Thutmose I, who was actually born and raised within the Great Pyramid of Giza to be a keeper of this sacred relic. The knowledge which the Thutmose I learned was taught to him by Tahuti. In time, when monotheists learned of him they began to call him Thutmose, Moses in the Jewish Old Testament and Musa in the Muhammadan Quran, though he was really a Tamarayan, ancient African. Being one taught by the Tamarayan angelic being Tahuti, falsely called Thoth by the Greeks, he, Thutmose I, came to protect the tablets, commandments, which were taken from the Tamarayan 147 negative confessions from the invaders who sought to seal the sacred secrets. In fact, the story of a Moses or Musa character found in religions today was stolen from Tamarayan, ancient African, a textbook which is found within the Bible in Exodus 25:10-13. And they shall make an ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the height thereof, and thou shalt overlap it with pure gold within and without shalt thou overlay it, and shalt make upon it a crown of gold round about. And thou shalt cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in the 4 corners thereof, and 2 rings shall be in the one side of it, and 2 rings in the other side of it. And thou shalt make staves of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold. Now, the being speaking in this quote is the angelic messenger Tahuti explaining to the Thutmose I, how to build an ark, and the ark he is speaking of is actually an electrical capacitor that was capable of storing energy, and releasing a continued discharge of intense light, heat and power, thereby keeping back the insects which would have normally come to consume the body of the dead. The current would also protect the decomposing flesh. In order to protect the deceased body against moisture, they dehydrated the body and removed the moist organs such as heart, liver, spleen, brain and kidneys, a process which was done by using salt, sodium, and other ingredients to dry out the body, thereby preserving it. All of this was done for they knew that when the day would come where they would be able to be recloned, they would only need one cell to survive the burial ritual process, thereby they would be able to be reborn through cloning upon the return of the Nature, the angelic host coming out of the Crystal City, a science which is being delved into by modern scientists today. The high voltage necessary to protect the ark, shrine, was provided by the atmospheric potential difference between the sky and the ground. This is because the electrical gradients above the earth is 60 to 100 volts per meter in fair weather, which increases during a thunderstorm. This is why shrines were usually placed on high mountains, natural, or artificial, as in the case of the Great Pyramids, in order to take advantage of these conditions. The principles and basic formulas that were used to create the Died pillar was the same formula used to build the Ankh, sarcophagus, coffin. This is where the so-called story of Jacob's ladder comes from, as found in Genesis 28:12. And he dreamed, and behold a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold the angels of God ascending and descending on it. You see, we as Tamarayan, ancient African, loved life so much, thereby with the knowledge we had about the nervous system we came to understand that it was the central force of the body without which we would not be able to live. Thus, when our rulers physically expired, we placed their bodies into a Ankh, ark, coffin, in order to preserve these rulers in their final resting place until the angelic host, Nature, would return to revive them through cloning. With all of this being said, it should be clear to you that the Ankh is essential to the liberation of all fact-seeking members of our kind throughout the world, for without the Ankh and its superior technology we would continue to be dependent upon inferior technology promoted by those who seek to keep us spellbound and asleep. Thus always know that as a free energy generator, the Ankh represents the symbol of our liberation, due to the fact that it produces electricity indefinitely without any fuel or other energy sources such as wind, solar or hydroelectric power.